Santosh is a complex and smart thriller which explores the issue of patriarchy and police brutality in northern India. The titular character Santosh is a widow, and she uses her legal right to take the job of her dead husband in public service and continue his legacy. The reporting of a rape and murder of a young girl brings out her ambition in the role, but can Santosh separate this ambition from the institutional violence and corruption of the police force? Santosh played in the Uncertain Regards category at the Cannes Film Festival last year and was nominated for Best British Debut at the BAFTA Awards. It was also selected as the UK's official submission for the 97th Academy Award for Best International Feature Film, where it made the final 15 shortlist. So let's roll and review that film. If you're new to my channel, my name is Paul, and I review the best of world cinema, and I follow the race for Best International Feature Film, from countries selecting their submission to the final winner. Santosh is the narrative debut feature film from documentary filmmaker Sandra Suri, who originally had aspirations to document the corruption of the police force in certain crimes against women and girls in northern India. However, the reality of making a documentary about such subject is quite impossible, with difficulty in terms of utilising the victims of crime as well as accessing the police force. I found the film to have quite a lot of depth to it, so as I was expecting it to follow a narrative arc that you would expect her to be fighting the corruption and patriarchy of the police force, but it's a lot more complex than that. Usually films like this will cover social issues and portray good and bad, but Santosh in itself really covers that grey area where characters are complex, characters are morally dubious, and they are good and bad. And in this case, Santosh both has the ambition and dedication to be a police officer, but at the same time is also playing towards the values of the institution, especially when they are negative and immoral. This is one of those films that appears deceivingly simple, but actually, as you let the film sit with you afterwards, you really think about those nuances and character. One of the characters I think demonstrates this concept really well is Geeta, the head of the police force. She is leading the brutality and corruption and is played wonderfully by the actress Sunita Raja, who really provides that multifaceted dynamic to the character. The film also brings out some beautiful cinematography, really utilising the documentary feel to the film. And there's one particular scene at the end, which doesn't spoil the story, but shows one of the characters looking over across the platform, and they are watching a couple, and this train goes by really fast, and between the gaps of the train, you see the changing movements of this couple, and it looks beautiful. This film has huge innovation in terms of the cinematography. That was really impressive for me. I think the big letdown for me is there's one particular scene in which there's a lot of brutality and violence in terms of the way they interrogate suspects. And I found this particular scene to be a bit over the top. I think there could have been smarter ways of portraying such violence and the complex morality of the characters in participating in this process in a much smarter way that didn't just resort to huge violence on the screen. More use of faces, more suggestions, while also showing violence as well. But it, to me, just really ramped up a bit too much. Santosh was the UK's official submission for the Oscars, and it was always going to be hard to follow up last year's winner, The Zone of Interest for the UK. So the fact it made that final 15 shortlist was a great achievement in itself. In fact, the UK has only ever had one Oscar win and 2 nominations, with Santosh being the first film to just make the final 15 stage for the UK. And I get the sense that the UK had quite a decent shortlist itself, so it was very hard to choose the right film to put forward. I, in fact, think On Becoming a Guinea Fowl could have been the UK's entry as well, but it was not selected. And while I prefer On Becoming a Guinea Fowl, it's a bit too surreal comedy to perhaps be a contender in the Oscars. So from a strategic point of view, Santosh was the right film, and I think making that final 15 was the best you could expect from it. Despite some of the flaws, I do think Santosh is a really good watch, and I would give it 3.5 stars.